This is the second model game for the topic of locking out pieces. Let's start with the evaluation of the position. So the first thing that comes to mind here is that the knight on e5 looks active, but actually doesn't have a lot of squares. For example, if f4 right away, the knight would only have the g4 square available, otherwise it would already be trapped. Then the next thing that would come to mind is the weak square on c6, which can be utilized by the knight, which could come via d4 to c6 later on, trying to use this weak square here. Also, the c file is of pretty big importance, so the first party that could occupy the c file will be definitely very happy. But as I said, the knight on e5 is a huge target, and that's why Larsen decided to play h3 here. So his point is that he wants to prepare f4 without knight g4 being possible. f4 right away could be a bit early, because now knight g4 with queen b6 possibly to come, black could have some counterplay. So h3 completely stops this, and now we're even already threatening to win a piece by playing f4. Black plays queen b6, preventing us from playing f4 due to the pin here now, but white played the simple queen d4, breaking the pin and again preparing f4 and winning a piece like this. So black already was in quite a tough spot here. He played f6, which is also not a move you want to make, because now the square on e6 is also weakened, and yeah, he did make space for his knight to go back to f7, but the square on e6 is now a big target as well. Black should have gone for queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and then g5, where the knight at least has a square to go back to g6, for example, after f4 takes knight g6, but still, black's position is not great at all. He went f6, white captured on b6, and now simply knight d4. And now, as I said earlier, the c file is also very important, and white got the chance to put the rook to c7 now. Black played g5, rook c7, rook d8, and now again, a very surprising move by white. He played king h2, which is a very fascinating plan. He wanted to prepare bishop e4 and then bishop f5, and yeah, he has to protect the pawn on h3 first to make that happen. I also mentioned earlier the square on e6 is a weakness, and white masterfully tried to make use of that by exchanging this bishop, and then the square on e6 will not have any defenders anymore. Black played h6, bishop e4, king f8, white played f4 finally, and black is forced to go back to f7. And now white played knight f3. Bishop f5, as mentioned earlier, would also be a nice plan. If black would take. Now the pawn on e7 is also a huge weakness, so the whole position is just a huge disaster for black. Now the knight on f7 is also very much restricted. But white went bishop f3, and that was a very nice prophylactic decision, because he wanted to make knight e6 check work without giving black any chance of counterplay. Because if you would go knight e6 right away, then after takes, black would have d5 and a counter attack on the bishop on e4. And if the bishop moves, the knight finally has some space to at least go to d6, and finally he has an active square. White is still a lot better here, but there was no need to allow this. That's why white played bishop f3, so that after knight e6 now, if black takes, there is no intermediate move with d5. Black played rook b8 here, and now knight e6 was just deadly. Bishop takes e6, d takes e6, knight h8, the only square for the piece, and f5, and now this is just totally sad for black. The knight on h8 will never come back into the game anymore, and yeah, black is just totally lost. White can even take his time, as in the game before. He simply went bishop b7 again, totally restricting black's pieces. Now the rook cannot even go to c8 anymore. Black is almost in Zugzwang already. He went a5, and now simply e4, and as you can see here by the arrows, white has two different plans. The first one could be to just run with the king to h5, and yeah, grab this pawn on h6. The other one is to play rook d1, rook d5, and make use of this weakness on a5. Simply get the pawn here, and yeah, black can just do nothing. He could move around with the rook e8, rook d8, and so on and so forth, and white has all the time to simply convert the full point. So very nice how white slowly but surely improved his position, and it all started with this move h3, prophylactically taking away this g4 square. And yeah, also a very nice moment of the game was this move bishop f3 here, because he saw that knight e6 is very powerful, forcing back the knight to h8, but he didn't even want to give black the chance to play this d5, getting out the knight. So a very good game, and a perfect example for locking out pieces as well.